Here's how to think through the process on your own to set a mix bus compressor. I'm going to start with the threshold and bring it down until I get an exaggerated amount of compression. More gain reduction than I'm going to end up with so I can clearly hear what's happening. Then I'm going to sweep through the attack. You can go either way, starting with a fast attack or a slow attack. But remember, a fast attack reduces the transients. So if you start with a fast attack, you make the attack slower and slower, bringing back the transients until the transients come back enough for you. If you start with a slow attack, you make the attack faster and faster until the transients start to disappear too much for you, then bring it back a notch or two. I usually do it both ways and see if I get the same result both times. If I do, then I move on. If not, then I A/B between the two options and try to make a decision from there. Then I do the same thing with the release, except this time I'm listening for how much the sustain comes up with the fast release, making it more in your face or aggressive, versus how much it smooths out or even goes flat with the slow release. A lot of great engineers use the auto release. I usually don't. Once the attack and release are dialed in, I'll adjust the ratio and the threshold to get a more reasonable amount of gain reduction. Then I'll set the high pass sidechain, listening for how much low end comes back into the mix. Then I'll increase the distortion settings until I get a distortion sound I like. Okay, now this is important. Typically, I'm going to want to push the outputs of the compressor to get some analog saturation without pushing the inputs of the converters back into the DAW. But you'll notice a lot of times when you start pushing the output of the compressor, you'll start peaking on the inputs of the converter, even if you have the input gain all the way down. And this is where the difference between makeup gain and output gain comes in. The SSL and the API have makeup gain, which is part of the wet signal. So as I decrease the mix knob, there's less makeup gain. Whereas the drummer only has an output gain, which sits at the end of the signal path in the compressor and exists completely independent of the mix knob. So on a compressor with makeup gain, not output gain, I'm going to set the makeup gain as I want it to get the analog distortion that I want. Then I'm going to decrease the mix knob until the inputs of the converters are no longer peaking. I'm showing you the meters for illustration purposes, but of course it doesn't actually matter what the meters are reading. Sometimes I do peak on the converters, sometimes it's perfectly fine a little bit, but I do it mainly by ear and just use the meters as very rough guidelines. So if you practice everything that I talked about, you will be able to set a compressor on your own if you just try it a bunch of times, and you won't have to, rely on presets and all that bullshit.